Hi there, welcome back to the YouTube channel. I'm back again and we're going back to the Brothers War today. Going to go for one of the legendary creatures that I've been meaning to do, and it just kind of sat there and I never really got around to it until I realised that I'd done Mishra and I hadn't done this one. So it's a mono one. There's been a few mono ones in this set, which is a bit unusual for me, but hey, it's a different mono one, and this mono one today is Titania, Voice of Gaea. 1/2 green for a 3/4 elemental creature with reach, which is nice. And it says whenever one or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you gain 2 life. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more land cards in your graveyard and you own both and control Titania, Voice of Gaea, and a land name Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, exile them and then meld them into Titania, Gaea Incarnate. So this is why you've got all 3 cards in front of you. So Titania is okay. You gain some life when your land goes into graveyard. Yeah, alright, okay. And Argoth, Sanctum of Nature is get into the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary green creature. You've got tap it to add a green mana, or you can then tap it to do 2 and 2 green and get a 2/2 bear creature token, and then you mill 3 cards. Now the idea obviously is eventually you get the 4 lands in the graveyard, and you've also got Titania and Argoth in play, and then you get to meld them into the card in the middle. Titania, Gaea Incarnate. Vigilance, Reach, Trample, and Haste. They're a nice set of stats. Land toughness and power are equal to the number of lands you control. And when it enters the battlefield, you return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And you can also pay 4 and put 4 +1/+1 counters on a target land you control. It becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste, and it's still a land. So, really interesting card to build around from my point of view. It's taken me a little bit of time, as I say, to try and get my head around it. And it's really been a case of this is going to be green and it's going to be heavy ramp. So, here's the deck. And as usual, I'll go through what we're doing with the lands. Mainly, it's forests, as you can see, because, you know, you're playing a monocoloured deck. You don't need to play a lot else. It also includes, obviously, Argoth, the Sanctum of Nature, Blighted Woodland, Broker's Hideout, Cabaretti Courtyard. We've got Evolving Wilds, Fabled Passage. We've also got a little bit further down Riveteer's Outlook and Terramorphic Expanse. Now, I've done this because I figured the sack lands were the easiest way to get them in the bin. If you've got any of the lands that sack for green or blue or whatever, you know, the pay 1 life, sack it, get a card, sack lands. If you've got any of them, include them as well, especially if they go and get green, because you want to get the lands in your graveyard as fast as you can. The rest of the ramp is fairly simple. I went with Soul Talisman, Mana Crypt, and Soul Ring, and that's it. I didn't see a lot of point because we are going to be ramping really hard with this deck from my point of view, and you'll see why when I get through the rest of the cards in a minute. Now, the idea is to get as many lands as I can into play, and then try and animate them or do something with them and make them come even better. So, and obviously we want to make sure we've got enough in play that when we play Titania Voice and we get to meld it together with Argoth, we can do all that side of it as well. So let's have a look at the rest of the deck. Birds of Paradise is in just to give us a another 1-drop ramp card to go along with Soul Ring. Traverse the Overworld is also in. Search land for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. But the upside to this is if there are 4 or more land card types in your graveyard, instead of search your library for a creature or a land card. So it gives us a way of searching out Argoth if we need to. And then you can put it in your hand. So bear that in mind. We've got a few things we can get into the graveyard. Things that will die, I'm sure. So hopefully we'll be able to hit Delirium with this as well. If not, we just cast it for 1 green mana, go and get a forest, and we've got another land for the next turn. So from that point of view, it's good. Expedition Map is probably the standard one for searching out non-basic lands. That's why it's in the deck. And then obviously Soul Ring I've mentioned already. Moving on from there, we want to make land drops. We want to make as many land drops as we can during a turn if we can. So I've included Azusa's Many Journeys because that lets us play an additional land, and then we can gain 3 life at Chapter 2, and Chapter 3 we can exile it, turn it into a 3/3. And then when we attack with it, becomes block, we get to untap 3 lands. So that's a fairly good plan from my point of view. I meant to say I've also included Gaea's Cradle. If you're building this deck in real life, ignore Gaea's Cradle. It's going to be really expensive when you look at the deck list that's down below in the description, where I hope you've hit the like button and you've hit the subscribe button. So ignore the cost of the deck. You can just drop Gaea's Cradle out. The rest of it's not too bad. So the other one we've got is Druid class. We're going to be hitting a lot of landfall triggers, obviously, so we're going to be gaining some life. And if we pay green and 2, we can play an additional land permanently, which is lovely. And then we also get to do the level 4 thing, where we get to make a really big creature. Power and toughness equals number of lands we control, and it's still a land. So, you know, bear that in mind. It comes with haste as well, so you can always play it on one of the lands you only played this turn to do it. Gaea's Blessings in, for the simple reason I'm a bit worried about this being milled out. I've seen a few more mill decks recently. I think I've mentioned it in some of the other videos, so I've put Gaea's Blessing in as a way to get around it instead of my usual that I have in, which is Elixir of Immortality. That's why there's no Elixir in here, so Gaea's Blessings in instead. Heroic Intervention to protect everything when we've got it in play. Nature's Law, Rampant Growth, go and find some basic forests to put into play. Sylvan Shrine is another way of going and getting Argoth if we need it. 3 visits, another land, forest scrying land. Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots are in so that we can protect Tiana when we get it in play, but I've also included the Staff of Tiana. Equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of forests you control, and whenever a equipped creature attacks, get a Forest Dryad land creature token thing. Yeah, fine by me, gives me more land. Everything we have in play will be a forest because of Yavimar Cradle of Growth, by the way, so, you know, hopefully we'll be getting a lot of them come through. Azusa Lost But Seeking is in so we can drop more lands. Cultivate's in to go and find the lands. Dryad's in to give us more land drops. Grow from the Ashes is so we can go and find multiple basic lands if we need to, or we just go and get one, it's fine. Same with Harrow, but and Harrow's quite nice in this deck because we want 4 in the graveyard. This gives us another way to get another land in the graveyard. We can always sack off a forest to do it if need be. Kadoma's Reach as well. Ruminap Excavators also in. Now I've put this in for the reason that I want to be playing things like Broker's Hideout, Cabaretti Courtyard, Evolving Wilds, etc. from my graveyard if I haven't got a land in my play to go and get another basic, hence why it's here. We've also got down the bottom the artifact version, which is Crucible of Worlds, so bear that in mind. Rites of Flourishing, extra bit of card draw, extra land drop every turn, fantastic. Search for Tomorrow just to suspend on turn 1. Sylvan Awakening is the first thing that we're going to hopefully use as a win condition. All the lands we control become 2/2 creatures with reach. They're indestructible and they have haste and they're still lands. Now, the downside to this, and this may be the argument for dropping something out of the deck and putting in something like Mox Diamond, is that you don't want to be tapping all your lands. At the moment, you know, you can do it with Birds of Paradise, you can do it with Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Soul Talisman if you get that in play. You can do it that way and just go for it. But obviously, if you've got to pay 3, you've got to tap 3 of your lands to do it. It's not the best well in the world. However, it is the case of if it's going to win you the game, you're going to do it. So keep it in mind. Tireless Trackers in just so we can get some clues and draw more cards and have a slightly bigger beat stick. Wayward Sawtooth, more land drops. Eternal Witness is in just to return anything that we've played already that we may need to get back or something that's been killed off. It's quite a good way of getting back Argoth if you have a problem where your opponent has sort of like strip mined it, wastelanded it, done something along those lines with it to make your life a little bit uncomfortable. So bear that in mind. Gaea's Anthem just to pump our creatures up. Toperia Stomper lets us find a basic land, put it into play. Hopefully we'll be getting 7 lands really quickly, and having a 4/4 Vigilance for 3 mana is pretty good. Crucible Wells I've mentioned. Oracle of Moodle Die, so we can play the lands off the top of our library. Venture Forth is one I've been including in a few more green decks recently. It comes from Baldur's Gate, as you can see, and it has this really nice ability that you can suspend it for 2, takes 3 turns, it comes off, you go exile cards from the top of your library until you get a land. The land comes into play. This goes back into exile with 3 time counters on it. So it's repeated ramping if you want to look at it from that point of view. I think it's quite good. Garruk Wildspeaker. There's a few Planeswalkers coming up. Garrick's in because we may need to untap the lands at some stage. I mean, it might be a case of that we do need to untap them after we've cast Sylvan Awakening. This gives us a way of doing it. And also it gives us a beast if we need it. And if we can get the +4 -4 off to get the +3/+3 and the trample to the end of turn, and then cast, have all our lands untapped for some reason, Sylvan Awakening, then it makes them, all those creatures 5/5s with trample, which is really hard to deal with. And when you're doing that, I'm expecting us to have sort of like 12, 13 lands in play, so bear that in mind. Solemn Sims in, it goes and founds as a land, draws the card when it dies. Rude Awakening is another variation of Sylvan Awakening. However, this one's a little bit more tricky to play because you have to untap all your lands, but I'll come back to that. And all your lands still become 2/2s, but they haven't got indestructible and they haven't got haste in this case. However, we can entwine this and it then chucks its cost up to 8 mana. And that's quite doable in this deck. So you can actually entwine this, untap everything we control, turn them all into creatures and still attack with them. Bear it in mind. Slimefoot Surveys in as well. With the domain, search your library for up to 2 land cards that each have a basic land type and put them onto battlefield tap. So 5 mana going to get 2 forests. Yeah, okay. But then you get a little bit of a scry action. You look at the top card of your library, and you get to put one of them on the top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So you're going to basically see what's coming next. It may not be the greatest card in the world in this deck, but I wanted to try it out and see if it's any good in a mono deck. I think you'll all probably agree with me that it's going to be a hell of a lot better in a multicolored deck than in a mono deck. So, hey hum. Defiler Revigor's in just to help us make those green spells cast a little bit cheaper. Yes, it's going to cost us a couple of life, but Druid class helps us gain some life. And it's also quite nice because whenever you play a cast a green permanent spell, you get to put +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Now, we do have quite a few creatures, and this may be a way of building them up, especially if we cast things after we've done the whole let's turn everything into creatures, all our lands into creatures. Put all +1/+1 counters on them, they still sit there, they don't come off. So even if the lands go back to being just lands, you're still going to be there ready to go on the next time you get to do something interesting with it. So that's pretty cool. Freyleys is in just for a little bit of enchantment and artifact removal. Also, +1 for the extra elf druids, really nice. Gives a bit of ramp. Green Sleeves, Marrow Sorcerer. Protection from planeswalkers and wizards. Power and toughness equals number of land. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, we get a 3/3 Badger token. Pretty good. I like this card. Nice card for 5 mana. Next... Oh. Sorry, moved my mouse. Next card up, this is Shakes the World. Helps our mana, helps our forests tap for even more mana. So, +1, get all the tokens on the land, that's fine. But if you can get the -8 off and get all your lands as indestructible, that really does help, hence why it's here. So we do want to protect this if we can, and we do want to get to the -8 bit as soon as possible. Seedborn Muse, just so we can untap everything if we need to. So I've got the other versions, Tiana in here, sorry. So this is a Protector Argoth. This is the one where a land just put into the graveyard, you get 5/3 elemental. And you also get to return a land from your graveyard to the battlefield when it comes into play. So it's quite nice with all the search lands. Bear that in mind. Vivian Reed's in as well, just so we can go and dig for some lands and then do the whole -3 bit. But again, it's another one with a really good -8 that will help us out. Creatures you control get +2/+2, have vigilance, trample, and indestructible. So turning all our lands into creatures isn't the worst plan in the world once we get the -8 off on Vivian, another one we need to protect. And I kind of treated myself for this deck. I haven't owned a Renin 7 either on MTGO or in paper until now. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go and treat myself to one. So I did. And we're going to get the +1 to go and find some lands. 0 to put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield, which really helps ramp. -3 to get that nice big tree folk. And -8, return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. And you get an emblem with no maximum hand size this turn. And then obviously the -8's not as great on this one. Return all permanent cards, you get the emblem. I'm sorry if I just repeated myself for this part of the video, but I had a phone call, so I had to pause the video and answer that. Right, moving on to 6 drops. Bootlegger Stash, because I thought I'd just make some treasure tokens if we can. Primeval Bounty, just so we can gain the life, because they've actually edited this now to have landfall, so we gain the life when the land comes into play. Ancient Green Warden, more lands we can play from our graveyard. It comes in, if a land entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an extra time. Doesn't really do much, but it's just playing the lands from the graveyard from my point of view. Kadoma of the East Tree gives us a way of putting more permanents into play. Multani's in as well, because obviously we like +1/+1 for each land you control on each land in your graveyard. That's nice, reach and trample. And at the end of the day, you can pay the 2 and return it if it gets killed off from your graveyard to your hand. So that's there. The payoffs for having all these lands, obviously Rampaging Ballot, and the other one I'll just pick on now is Avenger of Zendikar. Yeah, we're playing a deck that's basically really trying to get as many lands out as possible. These make a lot of sense from my point of view, hence why they're here. The other version of Titania's in as well, Nature's Force. This was from Brothers War Commander decks. You can play forests from your graveyard. Whenever a forest enters the battlefield under your control, you get your 5/3. And whenever an elemental dies, you get to mill 3 cards. So, you know, it's another way of getting the cards in the graveyard for this version as well. I've also included Titania's Command. It's, you know, at the end of the day, we can search out some lands if we need to, and it's 2 land cards, so it's another way of getting the Argoth out or one of the other lands we may need. Castle Garin springs to mind. Or it's a case of get 2 bear tokens and then chuck a whole load of +1/+1 counters around on the creatures we have in play. Overworld Hydra's here because its power and toughness equals the number of lands we control. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for land card, put it in the battlefield tapped. Another way of getting Argoth in play. Moving down a little bit further towards the end of the deck, I decided to play Gaea's Revenge just because it's Gaea, and you know this Titania turns into the Gaea incarnate, so we might as well have their Revenge in here as well. 8/5 with haste. Yes, it hasn't got trample. Yes, it's got no way of evading anything, but still, it can be a big threat and it can't be stopped. Kamal Heart of Crows is in as well from the original Commander set. This one I quite like because at the beginning of combat on your turn, all the creatures get +3/+3 and gain trample. So that's nice. That just automatically happens, assuming this survives to combat. But the one in the green to turn a land we control into 1/1 elemental creature with vigilance, indestructible, and haste is really nice as well. So that's why it's here. I figured I also might as well play Crater Hoof in this the 8 slot, purely because, you know, hopefully we'll have a whole load of mana floating. We can untap everything and cast this, you know, especially if we've got Nissa in play and we've done one of the random 5 drops, whether it is Rude Awakening, for example. We tap all our lands, get all that lovely mana, entwine this, then cast Crater Hoof. We're probably going to win there and then. Last couple of things I'm just going to point out. Animus Awakening's in. We're going to have quite a few instances of sorceries in the graveyard, and therefore getting this off for a nice X number so we can get a whole lot more lands into play is really nice. Genesis Wave is here for the same thing. 3 mana and get the X off. Loads more permanents going into play. Yes, we've got a lot of spells that we probably have to deal with somehow, but at the end of the day, we'll worry about that later. The last one to point out is Awakening in the Woods from Brothers War. 2 green and X, and you get all those Forest Dryad land creature tokens. It's a really cool word as well. Loads of extra lands, loads of extra fun all round, basically. And that's it. That's my take on Titania. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments down below if I've missed anything out, or if you think there's something I should include. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This will be played on stream at some stage. There's a link also down below to my stream, so hopefully you'll come and give me a follow over there. We're sitting at 138 followers at the moment on the Twitch stream, so that's really cool. Yeah, Christmas is coming. I'd like to get to 150. That'd be good. So, you know, if you're not following me already, come and give me a follow over there. And I will see you on stream very soon. Thanks for coming and watching the video. Take care. I'm out of here. Bye.